What's your status?
Well, let's see. I guess well, the way we left it off last time, I was feeling really, really good, and I still kind of am.
Good.
But it was kind of hard going away for me still.
It was challenging, the anorexia?
Well, before I left, I have to tell you this little story, because before I left, I was feeling so on top of the world, and like, oh my gosh, I feel like, I've gotten through some really tough things here, and it feels good and all that.
Yeah.
And that's all true. But then I accidentally listened to this podcast. And it's not even a podcast about eating disorders particularly. It's just about mental health. But this guy was on, and he's a professor. He's a researcher at Harvard. And he's researching aging.
Uh-huh.
And the whole thing was about how he believes that with some changes in some things that we can pretty much reverse aging and reverse all these. We're going to live to be who knows how old, and it was all so convincing. He's talking about
he's fearful of death.
What you can do for eating is to intermittent fast. So eat a few times. Eat like once a day. That's what he does. He eats once a day.
Do you think that this person might have issues?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I listened to this and I was really honestly getting tempted, because that was a real big thing. I wouldn't let myself eat all, till one time a day or something. So I felt myself getting tempted, oh, maybe he's right. I shouldn't eat all day. And it really, it got in there a little bit.
Well, let's talk about where the sensitivity lies, because if you were comparing the decades and lifetime of suffering, obsessed with eating,
right,
timing, restricting, basically fasting your whole life, if you were comparing what he was saying to your level and intensity of suffering, would it have been appealing?
No, and after I thought about it, it didn't take me long.
Okay, there's more. I have more. I want to pinpoint where the appeal arose, specifically where it arose. Was it really about this idea of living longer, especially when living longer requires you're obsessed with the timing of when and how much you should eat?
Yeah, it's not appealing.
Okay, so is it appealing when it becomes an excuse for you to maintain your thin supremacy?
No.
Okay, so that didn't have anything to do with it. This idea that, it's healthy, I could still do it.
Well, yeah, you're right. I got in there a little bit.
Okay, so this is important. You need to be able to tell the truth.
Why did that get in there?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But it's really important when I pose the question that you go in, analyze the question, and tell the truth.
Okay.
So let me just, and then if I'm not hitting it, are you able to hit the reason why it was appealing? What was the integrity behind the appeal? What was the reason? We want to find the why. We want to find why was this appealing? Did it have to do with thin supremacy in any way? Was it feeding that narcissistic supply that that anorexic thin supremacy wanted? Was it gratifying that in any way?
I think it was like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing where...
Well, you would feel it underneath. You would feel that underneath, though.
Yeah.
You would feel like... Say that again?
I thought it was about... the whole topic was about aging, so it was sneaky. It was it's about aging. So it's not really about dieting. It's about, you're going to look younger, you're going to be younger, you're going to feel younger.
Does that sound like body image to you?
Underneath there.
Does that sound like body image to you?
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? So this person has a clear fear of age. He might have ageism in there.
Sure, yeah.
Personally, within himself. where he would actually promote this way of eating, completely unaware of how this might impact someone's psychological survival mechanisms around food.
Okay, yeah, and that was his premise is that when you don't eat all day, and this is all tested on mice. I don't even know if they tested any humans. I don't know. But if you don't eat all day and you intermittent fast only one time a day, the rat, they felt like exercising, they had more energy.
They were in fight or flight. That's
because it's fight or flight, right?
Correct. Yeah, that would be my assumption, is that, well, of course, you could check their adrenals, you can check all their fight or flight reactions. They're probably seeking out food. I mean, and to make the assumption that we would benefit to that degree negates thousands and thousands and thousands of studies that show if leptin levels fall, your thyroid reduces.
Yeah. And so it was really...
Yeah, and that doesn't even include psychologically the impact of how that affects that pre-wiring we have around feeling and wanting to be secure with food and abundant with food. And it also doesn't include how much temptation and what happens to cravings when people are deprived of food when food is abundant directly around them, sights, smells, and then the inaccess to cultural connection through food. He's not including any of that either. So he's making this argument that this would be healthy for humans without looking at the whole human species.
It was very...
myopic?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? Even though, let's just say we don't see that, right? I want to go into your space and anybody's space who suffers from, who has, I want to say this differently, who has been in a relationship with thin supremacy and supported and sustained thin supremacy in a narcissistic way. When you hear things like that, and it would clearly benefit and support thin supremacy or even ageism, age supremacy, youth supremacy. The goal is that it makes you kind of gag a little, like gross.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. There's body image and it's supremacy image involved in this. Is a life really superior? Because you have great knowledge in this area, no matter what the body image is. If it requires a degree of deprivation, is it really superior if that deprivation is permanent?
No.
I would agree. How, right? Like, if it were...
I see all this. I saw it, but it was like, I could just feel it going...
Yeah, well, you have always been upfront. You've always been honest around the ageism that you've also felt, like the shame about being older. And we never really gone into that aspect of body image because you've been so kind of, brainwashed with thin supremacy as the master of your life. That's been our main focus. But this is still, the ageism might still be there. Like younger people are superior to older people, even though we both know on some level they're just dumb shits that have a lot of learning to do.
Right.
With tight skin, with the elastin in place.
Right.
I also know older people who are from the previous generation who are no longer capable and should not have any say in what's going on. Right?
Yeah.
They need to zip their lips because they're clueless. They're disengaged from reality. Right?
There's been so much happening.
Yeah, so, but this whole idea of supremacy, the worth of life is better if it can last longer.
Yeah. That's what he was saying.
Right? Like, wow. Okay, when I'm in my 90s, of course, I hope I don't have Alzheimer's, because that's in my family. My mom had it, my grandma had it. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm not going to sit here and obsess on making it not happen. That takes away my freedom. That takes away the authenticity of my life. So to live in fear of that, to some degree, to some excessive degree, right? Because it's not all or nothing around making sure, like, I want to take classes. I do want to keep my mind plastic, Doesn't mean that I don't have that awareness or have that motivation. It just means it's not driving my survival. I'm not anti my genetics, if that makes sense. And could you imagine going through what he's suggesting, which would eliminate you from social participation? It does require on some level that you starve yourself, especially for leaner individuals. Someone who is morbidly obese could do that without having any symptoms of starvation because they have adequate fat cells, adequate leptin production that would sustain their life. That, again, that's where we go into the science of that HCG protocol that I'm an expert in, right? Like why that would actually be okay.
He can go all day, and because he's got extra weight,
correct.
He can go all day. He doesn't even notice it.
Exactly.
Send him like
correct. Exactly. Whereas someone who is leaner or in your position, you're hearing what he's saying and applying it to yourself. This is why people in this position really should have some boundaries.
Yeah. He had the woman doing the podcast, hosting it. She's had an she's a famous person. She's had an eating disorder in the past, and she's maybe still does. I don't know.
Well, did she mention any of those issues?
She was tears by the end of the podcast, literally. It affected her so, she was like,
Oh, that poor woman.
She was affected by, she thought that, if the people that don't have money in this world wouldn't have access to, he's trying to develop drugs that would, or supplements that would do this naturally without having to starve yourself.
Oh my God. Okay. Now I see where this is.
Inequity. That the people that didn't have money wouldn't have access to this better life or this longer life that's supposed to be better. And she was in tears by the end of it. Yeah, it was it really got to me too. It was wow.
Well, the reality is what a privileged thing seriously, they're out of their fucking minds. In my opinion. I'm just going to throw that out there. That sounds so inappropriate.
It's just so, like you said, it's a good word, myopic. It's just so one-sided, just one
Well, and so inappropriate to project your privileged white, probably richness, as if it's so terrible for those poor people who would listen to this and say, you people are so fucking privileged. Like the last thing I'm concerned about is taking this pill that would let me age in my poverty better. Like, what?
Right.
Dunning-Kruger on a different level, in a different space.
That was what I was...
I'm glad that was a trigger for you, only because it helps you learn more, right? Those little things, it's like you don't know until you're triggered that there was something that needed to be addressed and surrendered. Looked at, accepted, surrendered, let go, right?
Yeah, and it became really clear within a day.
Yay. What is worth suffering like that again?
This does not, what he was saying, even though he's a Harvard professor and all that.
Dude, I've had a Harvard professor as a client coming to me for help with her anorexic belief systems.
Right.
Just so that you know.
Yeah.
So,
but it became very clear that whole thing was not for me, not for me. That was not the way I needed to go. So.
Well, in one way, again, remember when I we've talked about the comparisons, how when you get into that space, it's important you pause and compare. Is the suffering that this will require worth the benefits that they are, basically the mirage of the benefits, because it does require suffering.
Yeah.
So is your life of perpetual suffering getting older in your anorexic starving program worth living longer, having to do that to live longer?
Oh, no.
Right. No. Hell, no. I'd rather be fat. I'd rather die at 70. I'd rather live a real, authentic, heart-driven life that isn't based on that. Right. I don't know. I just don't think people really understand the impact that these body images that are connected to food deprivation, how much damage they do to people's lives, to people's freedom, right? And it's only because it's hooking in that primal part of the brain that's supposed to be protecting our access to food. Like, why can't we get a body image that does not mess with our access to food?
Right.
freaking fake eyelashes. Go get fake eyelashes. That one would be so easy to deal with, right?
Right. I don't even want to do that. That's too much work.
That's funny, right? That's too much work.
Yeah.
But intermittent fasting for the rest of your life for ageism isn't.
Yeah.
You see? That's how appealing that, this is what happens in the mind, right? Because it's not a you problem. It's an anybody problem who is using body imagery as their source of connectivity or value, right? So you would say the opposite. If your perception of beauty came from eyelashes. Makes sense? Like if your eyelash length was super important to your father and your mother, and he talked about it, and your husband talked about it, would you say the same thing? Does that make sense? Like that's just, so our goal would be, you know how you're like, oh, I don't even care about that. That's how we want you to feel about thin supremacy and youth supremacy.
Yeah.
And health supremacy. These are all concepts, right? We want that type of reaction. That's full recovery. Boom. Like you will never ever go back into it again because you would rather be the opposite. You'd rather go into rejection, abandonment, disapproval. Like I've decided I'd rather have type 2 diabetes than to go back into worrying about carbs.
Yeah.
If it requires that much effort, I'd rather not.
Yeah, I do that comparison. Every time something comes up,
right.
That's like, I do that comparison. Like nothing, like when I felt like I was getting too big of a pain.
Hey,
what's worse?
I love it, and honestly, I think it is so amazing that you kind of got sensitively triggered, which is understandable. You just came out of 40 plus years of anorexia, right? And you came out of it within 24 hours.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So that's a great sign that even if something appeals to you unconsciously, you are consciously capable of recognizing it and ending it. It's not running you.
Funny how these things keep coming up, but I am recognizing them. So.
Well, and as you recognize them, you tell me this and think about it. If another podcast shows up and it's like the benefits of getting rid of all nut oils. I'm going to use that as an example because I had another client whose father sends him all this propaganda around. You should eliminate 100% of all nut oils in your life because it's the number one cause of cardiovascular disease, which is like so inflammatory. But anyways, his dad kind of has this fear, sends him this stuff. And he sent it to me to say, look what I have to deal with. It's my father sends me this fear mongering from a doctor, right? Who has this newsletter about how never to eat nut oils. Anyway, so could you be able to see that and say, I'd rather have cardiovascular disease,
right,
than to have to micromanage everything in my food in fear of the body having cardiovascular disease, which may be more attributed to the fear if we really look at it.
Right. Totally. Wow. Yeah.
Right. So those are things like go through in your mind. I think it's an important thing to desensitize. And it is part of the recovery process is desensitizing these phobias that before just ruled your life. If you wouldn't go out, you wouldn't, because there was somewhat of a phobia around fat gain, right?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. I remember for me, and these are all things that I didn't understand at the time, nor did I even recognize the importance of them. It was just important now in hindsight and helping other people. I remember thinking, if I were to reincarnate, I think that was where a lot of this awareness came to me, was when I was still committed to committing suicide and dreaming about potentially a new life, how I would do it different. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be obsessed about my body. Like the last thing I want to do is be have my mind obsessed about my body. I don't want to ever do that again. And I realized I didn't want to do it again in any fashion. I would do the minimum necessary. Right? I would do what felt good for me. So yoga feels good. Then I'll do that. But I'm not going to do it because of some expectation. I will do it for the pleasure of the activity.
Mm-hmm.
It benefits my neck and my lower back and the degenerative issues I have. I will do it for that, but I'm not going to do it because it's who I am. And I don't want to have to do anything that takes away from the freedom of my mind. And it's not just the freedom of my mind, the freedom of my exploration in life.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I remember actually visualizing, well, what would I do? Because the fear arises, right? Again, oh my God, you're going to be fat. If I can't handle that, I'm literally going to do the same thing in the next life. I will end up having anorexia and binge eating and bulimia and all that again. Like that was obvious to me. So I was like, if I can't accept a fat body in the next life, there's no way this is going to work. And then I went into what that would be like. Well, I would have to accept rejection. I would have to accept people mocking me. I would have to, and those are things that I had to really desensitize myself to, because prior those were things I was so phobic about,
right, exactly.
that I would rather commit suicide, right? So to go in and actually experience the rejection and abandonment in my mind was so vital to my freedom from being controlled by trying to prevent that, right? So I remember thinking, what if I am born without limbs? What if I get in a car accident and I lose a leg? What if that happens to me in this life? Could I be happy and have the freedom with disability? With legit physical disability, right? Could I do it? And I remember thinking, oh my God, that would be so easy compared to my abled body having to maintain the extreme perfection of it.
Yeah, that's so big, yeah.
Right? It was a big deal because it changed my awareness. It was like seeing things for what they were. The truth of the fact is, if I were liberated from obsessing over my fat-free, healthy, disease-free, death-free body, that would be easier. Now, it doesn't mean, and I don't want to diminish the difficulty that presents in life, but that difficulty in comparison to the mental illness, to me, was no comparison. It was like, oh my God, that would be so much easier than having an anorexia. I'd rather have no limbs. Sure, I'd need someone else. Sure, I would be dependent. Sure, I would have limitation in my physical exploration, but there would be zero limitation in the exploration of my mind.
You'd actually be alive.
Yes, I would be inhabiting my life. I would absolutely take, if given like a slew of body problems. To me, once you accept that and you live with it and you learn to live with it, you're free. Total freedom of the mind. But that requires acceptance of that, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case for you, it would require acceptance of ageism. Acceptance that you're going to die at some point of something. What do you want to do in between now and then with your conscious awareness and that freedom, that white space of infinite possibility? What do you want to do about it? How much of that do you want to contribute to focusing on the health of your body?
Yeah, I'm being young.
Minimal. I know that was my answer. It's not
so
zero.
You live your whole life just to try to be younger, so that's all you're doing, and then you're not living your life, so why do you even want to be older?
So what are you accomplishing with that? Right? Exactly. What are you really living in with that? I mean, you're just you're living. It's like your role is to fix your body, to be something.
I know. Yeah.
It isn't naturally. It's not naturally that way. Again, it's
fighting your body. Yeah.
It's not all or nothing, right? It's not like I don't brush my teeth. It's not like I didn't brush my hair or take a shower, or that I don't get my vaccination, or I didn't do this. It's not like I don't do that. I just put minimal effort. I don't want to put more effort into it than to where there is some suffering involved. Now, okay, let's just use the case of getting diagnosed with cancer. My mom was diagnosed with brain cancer. My sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I had a sister diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I had a brother die of brain cancer. I have lots of cancer around me, right?
Yeah.
In their mind, there was absolutely a risk analysis, right, of the quality of life and what is it worth right now to go through chemotherapy or radiation or whatever protocol. What is it worth to them? And in a temporary situation, it might be highly worth it. It might be highly worth it it was for my sister to go through immunotherapy and all sorts of stuff and surgeries and to go back and forth to, it was a temporary sacrifice in that moment because her body demanded it.
Yeah.
Of course I would do the same if it was me. I would fight for that to some degree. But in the case of fear-mongering and a mirage of problems that isn't real, that's permanent. That's like a permanent thing. Like, there's a difference, I think, between an acute circumstance versus a chronic mirage of potential problem.
Right.
You see how it's not black or white?
I do.
Yeah. Some people think like, well, then you shouldn't wear makeup. Then you shouldn't do your hair. Then why do you look like everybody else? And why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why would you? So you're telling people they shouldn't even brush their teeth or take vitamins? No. But I would say there is studies on people who are label readers tend to have fear about their body.
Interesting.
Yeah, I put it in, I think, Diet Supremacy, my second book, about label reading and its connection to obsessive compulsive issues.
Yeah. And now in all the restaurants that are, well, I guess chain restaurants, all the calories are listed out.
Yeah, and there might be benefit to some degree, but for many people, it's actually like enabling issues.
Yeah. It's a trigger for a lot of people. Yeah.
Right, of course. But the goal would be that the people like you and I, that no longer is irrelevant to us. It's only relevant to someone that thinks it's important.
Right.
So you can see someone who's obsessed with label reading, to me, that's a form of suffering.
It sure is.
Right? Like you have to be that...
Thing. I mean, it really is. Like, I can tell myself all I want that, I'm fine. I'm not even hungry. But it's not really true. So.
Right. And if it's beneficial for someone to learn, like someone who is diabetic to really understand, great. But if that is something that's being taught as a requirement forever, that's a form of suffering. And it's not realistic anyways.
Right.
Yeah, it's in Diet Supremacy. I can't remember. Say that again?
So that's what came up this week, and then I'm pretty, it got me a little, but
You nipped it in the butt. I am super pumped about that.
I did, I think.
I think that's fantastic.
Okay.
Again, I think that it's an important thing for you to realize that this is a process, that things may come up that you will address as they come up. What was helpful for me in this place, because I remember when I said, I'm free, I will never do this again, but I'm going to give myself the grace of what I don't know. And there might be things out there that might create vulnerability or fear, and I don't know what that is. If I did, I would address it right here, right now, because I'm freaking done. I do remember thinking, I want to face it sooner than later so I can move on. So again, this goes back to the desensitization of like phobias and fears. If something arises, I'm going to face it up front. I don't want to have to hide from it. If I'm aware of what that is, I will face it immediately. Just like facing that Grim Reaper, it's the same process. What is this about? What am I afraid of? Can I handle it? And you move through it. You don't move around it. or hide from it, right?
Right.
Ways to
actually facing your
what it is without guilt, right? We talked about why that's important last time, right? So really important. There's no guilt, because you're basically, when you do that, you're taking your mind and putting it in a position to have to deflect, deny, repress, because no one wants to feel that there's something wrong with them. And so that was really important, that I didn't shame or guilt that there were things that may arise, because they were factually true no matter what. And as they arose, I allowed them to arise without thinking there was something wrong with me because of it.
Or that you weren't recovered or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I remember thinking, if there is more to come, it's inevitable that it will show up at some point. So I gave myself permission ahead of time that as things arise, I will address them as they come. And I'm not going to, again, if you're judging the process, that means like you're inflating yourself still to be better than you are. Like again, that's kind of the narcissistic nature of the ego, of your survival. Yeah. Get rid of that judgment. You did nothing wrong by listening to that. And by that triggering you, it just meant that there is still some body imagery that you might need to address.
Yeah, I think you're right. The age thing, that was what it was really about. Yeah. That kind of stuff on me, yeah.
And I think that really what comes with the age thing, what does that symbolize? You know, if we really look at ageism or youth supremacy, if we want to call it that to make it easier to see, what is it that would make youth supremacy, what does it symbolize?
I think being worthy.
Sexual attractiveness?
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Being seen, being worthy,
feeling like you have some capital in society, body capital.
And make a difference, and you're not just, wasting space.
Right, like you have superior genetics, or you're still valuable because you're still visible.
The thing is, my favorite people are older people.
I know, but you know what? I understand the thought. That's like saying, I have best friends that are fat. Why can't I accept that for myself? It's because that's irrelevant. It's a you problem. It's not a them problem. It's your survival.
Superiority, your need for superiority.
Yeah, it's you're experiencing that narcissistic vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? That they're not superior, but I am. So I'm held to higher standards.
So that's why the grasping, like when people start to age and they're grasping onto all these ways to try to look younger, like be it supplements or be it surgeries or be whatever.
For that reason. Because I take supplements, but not for that reason.
Yeah, for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're grasping it. So this is a great example of being identified. Identifying your value through like youth. I have some personal training clients. We've had this conversation. I have this one client who went on vacation. She went to Palm Springs, and she was there and just was like, God, I'm so old. All these young people with their young, hot bodies walking around like, She was projecting her ageism. So when she was young, she walked around and put down older people. So she was experiencing what she was doing at that age and feeling bad about herself.
Yeah.
This is why I'm like, oh, karma is a bitch. Right?
Okay.
And she laughed. She was able to have this conversation. But it's like, this is where that type of narcissistic identity as a youthful, superior person is going to bite you in the ass as you get older. And what a weird way to define the value of life. Like when you're young, you're more valuable.
Right.
And to me, the goal is to not be so defined by being seen as socially valuable. I don't need the social capital. It's like, do you need social capital? Ultimately, in our current state, with all the riches and the fact that we don't have to fight for our life in a pack or a tribe like they did for thousands of years ago, we don't have to do that. And I'm like 44. I'm about to go back to college. I'm working on getting my master's and doctorate. Isn't that great news? But anyways, wow. I'm going back and I'm going to be like the oldest in these classes, right?
Yeah.
You go, and that's an obvious thing. Like, I'm going to stick out.
That's awesome.
I don't care because I'm living my life for my own gratification. So the reason I'm going is because I want to do it. And thank God I didn't have ageism back then, because then I would feel bad about this, right?
Right. I think that's awesome.
Well, it is awesome. I'm excited to do it. And that's totally digressing. I want to get back to this conversation, though, because I think this is really important for the topic of body image. And it's where its value is and when it becomes a block to exploring your own life, no matter what age you are. Imagine if you believed in, youth supremacy, how much energy it would require for you and money, energy, time, money, thoughts, to maintain your youthful perception, your youthful facade, because it's a facade.
I know, yeah. It takes over your life. It can, yeah.
Correct. It's just more, it requires a lot more.
It requires a heck of a lot to
more.
Do all
yeah,
that.
And as you get older, it's going to require even more. When you go through menopause, it's going to require even more. When you know what I mean? So eventually you disappear. And that to someone who has youth supremacy is devastating. They're going to have to do something to stay relevant, right? Because if your age is why you have relevance, holy shit. Again, that's superficial. Like, my thinness is why I'm relevant. Why I appear. Really. Then you're screwed, because now you have to diet. And that creates a whole circus sideshow of mental illness, right?
Right.
I would say it actually would be better to have ageism than thin supremacy. If we were to compare which one is less horrible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right. Because you can just go get your hair dyed again.
Right, get a facelift, get all the expensive,
like that you can do. Like,
yeah,
don't work too hard at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I still managed. I got through that, and I saw it. I recognized it, and the rest of the trip was overall so much better than the trips before, and I was not going to let my eating disorder get in the way of, like, having fun with my husband and let it take priority. I just wasn't going to do it.
How did you do with your food consumption?
That's what, that's kind of what I was talking about.
How much thoughts went into that? How much, and be honest, don't repress it. Like, before, let's compare before and after. Before,
all I could think about.
90% of the time would have been your body fat, your weight, what food you ate, what you can't eat, what you shouldn't.
Where am I going to go to dinner? I don't know what they're going to have.
And the anxiety involved in all that. Mm-hmm.
All day I shouldn't eat, just because I don't know what I'm going to eat later. Just like all that. It was so much work. And I was bound and determined I wasn't going to let it take over my time that I did have with my husband, I'm just going to, I'm going to make it as easy as possible and just go with the flow more.
Yeah. When I was sick, I would have been focused on where can I exercise? When can I exercise? Can I get it done without someone knowing? Because I would have eaten and then tried to exercise it down.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's just insane. Okay, so that would have been 90% of your day. And then what was it? Where is it realistically at, would you say, in this process, in terms of how much you think about what you're eating, how much you're eating, if you're going to gain weight, needing to restrict because you might have overeaten, like how much of your mind was there this time?
I would say still it's still some. There's still some. Maybe like 30%.
Oh my God! I was thinking you were going to say 60%. Wow.
It's judge that, but I'm feeling like it's less and less important. Although,
dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, but although it's still like, what am I trying to say?
Dude, how much of it is normal?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I don't know. Okay, like
so I would say today. Let me
I still have trouble. I still have trouble when I'm not at home. Like
okay.
when I'm on my phone during the day, it's hard for me to figure out like what am I supposed to eat? Am I hungry?
Well, of course. When you're at home, you're still kind of controlled, so it can enable. When you're at home, it can really enable a lot. Can you see that?
When you aren't home?
When you are at home. When you live.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You can enable yourself to never really get better.
Yeah, because you can stay in that hole.
And follow the habits and never really, oh yeah, I'm recovered, but there's literally no change. Yes. Yeah. So like you said, well, of course it's easier at home. When you go out, it's dynamic. So when you're fully recovered, you will be excited about that because you want to try new foods. You want to.
And I felt like that this time a few times. I got like a little excited. I was really.
Were you scared to gain weight?
Scared. Yeah, not scared. I wasn't scared, and
that's a big deal.
Like, it was like I don't have to. I can get something that I like, and I don't have to be scared of it.
Okay, so this is like, again, we're desensitizing your fat phobia.
Yeah.
Not because we're afraid. It's not because I won't gain weight and I'm not afraid of that anymore. It's you're okay gaining weight, and so therefore you don't have to be afraid of food.
Right.
I want to say that again. If this is like a phobia of fat, okay, what we're doing isn't reducing the phobia by you feeling confident you're not going to gain weight. We are reducing the phobia by you accepting weight gain and not thinking it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
What that does is it now takes the phobia out of food. Naturally, you don't have to work on the food. It just naturally becomes easy. Because the only reason you are afraid of food is because that food was threatening, was a source of threat because of your fat phobia.
Yeah.
Do you following me?
I am, yeah. Okay. But I do still think it's more, I think it's still there more than I want it to be.
Okay, well, it's important that you say that.
The confusion I get, like trying to go, if I'm by myself, like trying to go let myself have food when I'm on my own during the day or whatever, it still like sends me into a tailspin.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, are you judging that or are you okay with that?
I'm ready for that part to be gone.
Okay, well, don't judge it.
Okay.
If we take the judgment out, so take the judgment out, okay? So this is what it is. What is the solution right now to that?
Facing it.
Yeah, immediately. This is remember when I said you got to get pissed? You're going to be like, why? I'm going to intentionally put myself in a position where I'm going to go order anything off of the menu.
Yeah.
It's almost like forcing yourself, your fear, to do it. Because the sooner you do it and the more often you do it, the less problematic that would be. It becomes a nothing burger. It becomes a no factor. Yeah. And it actually gets exciting when you travel because you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to try new food, new cocktails, new environments. I get to have different coffee. I want to try this. Yeah. And it's obviously not the center of your attention. We don't want 90% of your mind on food like it has been. Mm-hmm. But there's no longer fear in any of it. Period. Zero fear. Yeah. So what you're saying is there's still some fear. That it would be easier for me to just stay in my room and order exactly what I need than to go to a restaurant and look at a menu.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like putting the blind, like putting your finger in your ears going, la, 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 la,
right. Okay, so what this tells me is you have not fully accepted the weight gain.
Okay.
You might have partially, 80%, 90%, it's not 100%. Right?
You're right.
Yeah, and that's okay, because it's kind of like, maybe this for you is like a stair-step process rather than jump off the cliff. There's nothing wrong with that. It always brings you back to, if you're not willing to gain weight, you get to have this fear continue. Right?
Yeah.
What would happen if you, in your heart, soul, and mind, signed the contract that said, I would rather, if it is the cost of my freedom to be 200, 300 pounds, I'm signing off as an agreement. I am willing.
Yeah.
So what I did was 500. I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but in my mind, that was realistic. I'm 5'9.5". I'm a bigger, muscly, bulky person. So 500 pounds to me was within reach. So for you and your body type, like, what does your fear say you could be? What does the fear say? Not your logic, your fear. Put a number on it.
My real fear is it would be it's not even the number that's the fear. The fear is that my metabolism's broken and I'll just keep, even if I eat normally, it's just going to go up and up and up. That's
yeah. To about what? To,
I would say 150 or something.
150 pounds?
Yeah. That's my fear.
Okay, so let's go there. Let's do it. Face it. Look at it. Because your fear is saying, don't look at that, avoid it, we don't want that. And that's why there's a continuation of your kind of anxiety with food to the degree, right? In your mind, how much weight have you accepted? Maybe 110 pounds or 120? Like, where are you at where you're like, yep, I would be okay with that?
I don't even know what I weigh, so I don't even have any clue.
Well, you know your size and you know the way you look. Because really, it's really about the look. I'm just using pounds as a measurement to...
Yeah.
Like, my mind, I was willing to have a belly laying on my legs and on the side of a park bench. Like, so much body was overflowing onto around me.
Yeah.
And to me, I estimated roughly 500 pounds for my body to actually have so much body that it's like overflowing like lava.
Okay, well, I'm 5'2". So.
Worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is, you said 150 pounds?
Yeah.
So it would be, thighs rubbing together, arms that are bigger boobs, belly, kind of maybe some rolls on your belly when you sit down.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at it. Just sit with it for a little bit. Can you look at it? Or is your mind saying, don't look at it, don't do it?
No, I've done it. I've looked at it.
Let's look at it some more, because you haven't looked at it all the way. Do you want to go bigger? Because what we don't want to do is give your anorexia room. You want to go to 200 pounds?
I mean, 150 feels huge to me, so that's fine.
Okay, well, how about 200 pounds? Notice what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to negotiate with that narcissist in there. Make it worse. Because really, when you talk to your fear, I'm actually more accurate than you are. Your fear thinks you're going to have rolls. Like when you sit down, it's going to be rolls.
Yeah.
I want to go into like morbid obesity. You're like, I'm just going to stay overweight range.
Because I and part of all this is learning that I want to be real and true with like telling myself the truth. Like if I'm hungry, I need to eat. Like I need to tell myself the truth.
But if you still have that fear that your metabolism is, in all reality, what you said about your metabolism does not match what you said around 150 pounds.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. It's not aligning. I want to talk to your fear, and your fear is probably more where I'm at with like saying you're going to be 200 pounds.
Yeah, my fear is that big. Yeah.
I know, just tell the truth. I'm not like calling you out.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, stop trying to protect that narcissist in there. Your fear, when you said what I feel is that my metabolism is so broken that it will never stop. That's what I felt too. I felt the same thing. And if I were to tell the truth, I literally believed I would be 500 pounds, even though intellectually I knew that was really ridiculous. Because if you know you're not going to be binging, that doesn't align. But it does align with the idea that your body's broken. If I had a broken body and there was something legitimately hormonally wrong and metabolically wrong, it would gain no matter how much I ate.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the restrictions make sense. You're restricting based on that fear and the belief that you're broken. That if I don't do this, the truth of the broken body will present.
Yeah.
Okay, so that right there is what you have not done. You have not opened yourself up to that truth. You've opened yourself up to a more gratifying idea of thin supremacy at 150 pounds because you would still blend in at that size. Yeah. Do you see how that's enabling? It would still be challenging for you, but it's still somewhat enabling because what is the truth if your body is factually broken? What is the truth of where it would land with you eating like a normal person? If we remove all of the anxiety and limitations, what is the truth of how your body would respond?
Yeah, you're saying that's where my fear lies.
Well, what I just said, isn't that the answer to recovery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking at the worst case scenario. Looking
at the truth. What is the truth of your body? Your mind says, the fear mind says you'll be how much? Over 200 pounds probably.
Okay.
Because that's what your fear is saying. My metabolism is so broken that my body will not stop adding fat. Like if fat will take over my whole life. I will be so fat you can't see my face anymore.
Right.
That is what's running the show, dearie. That fear and that belief, because you believe it to be true inside.
The metabolism thing or the fat thing?
That you'll gain so much fat that it won't stop.
Okay. Yeah.
That truth right there is what's running the show. That's what's underlying all of the continued fear you still have.
Okay.
And you're still experiencing. Even though it's better, I'm all for better, it's still there. And so you're still tiptoeing around your fear of weight gain. Or fear of completely letting go of those food restrictions because they shelter you from that reality.
That hit a chord there. Wait, say that again.
Okay, we are at 50 minutes. Write that down. At 50 minutes, we start talking about your fear of your body. And that if you don't have control over what you're eating, that it will, if you let go of every little detail of what you're doing, your body will gain weight without control. It'll just blow up like, do you see where I said, how much do you think you'll gain? Do you hear how inappropriate your 150 pound mark was?
Yeah.
That wasn't the truth, right? The truth is, it could go up to 300 pounds. That's what your fear is saying on the inside.
Right.
That is why you still have these issues. It is that exact fear that if you don't do something, your body will exponentially grow fat.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I heard that thing about intermittent fasting, I'm like, well, because I'm broken, I need to do that.
See?
At least I can do that. I'm going to
so
eat, but what?
Can you see why then that was a vulnerable thing for you? Because you're vulnerable anyways. Because you still haven't fully faced the truth of your fear. The truth of your fear. Don't minimize it. So your 150-pound number was a minimized number. It was like trying to lie about your fear. 150 pounds. You're actually saying what you believe would be tolerable right now. Is that right? I could go up to 150 pounds. Ugh, it would be miserable.
Right.
But any more than that, I would absolutely go back into my anorexic misery and would never
recover.
While you still are kind of not recovering.
Oh my God.
Your anorexia is getting bigger. Or let me say, it's broadening its perspective. We talked about this, like your cage is so much bigger right now. That is so important. And really, really important. And beneficial.
Now that you know these things and you've tasted this freedom, why would you ever go back? It's like, why?
Well, you haven't even fully experienced the freedom. I'm telling you, like, yes, you are feeling relative freedom. Relative to the cage you were in, this is luxury mansion.
Yeah.
It still has walls. That's what you're noticing when you went on your vacation. There are still walls here. And it's still small. It's just comparatively humongous, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And we're not going to judge it because the reality is you have not yet faced the 300-pound mark in your mind. You haven't faced the truth of your fear.
I feel like I have, though. I don't know.
Well, you have to some degree. There's more to go. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You have faced to some degree.
So once I really faced it fully, then the temptations I'm gonna laugh at them more. Right?
Yes. Let's go. That was I want to go more simply. I want to say something a little more simple. Okay. Once you face and accept what your fear says will happen, because that's what we're working with. We're not working with your logic. We're working with the fact that you truly believe that you're going to be so fat that you can't breathe.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're working with. If you can accept, so this is why I went to 500 pounds, because that was what my fear was telling me would happen. And if I didn't acknowledge that edge, I knew I wasn't going to recover. I'd always have fear of that. That would always be there because I believed that's what would happen in my psyche. Like my fight or flight survival animal brain truly believed I was going to be 500, 600 pounds. If I didn't acknowledge that or go in to accept that, I wouldn't have had the freedom from monitoring my food, checking my weight, always having an eye on what's going on with my pant size, making sure I got extra exercise after I ate because I just can't face that. So I got to make sure I keep my controls to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Because without keeping those controls, I'm going to be 600 pounds. So keeping those controls, even though they're not as restrictive as they were, that's still suffering. You still have it. You brought it up because it's still there on some level.
I'm trying to tell the truth about it all.
You are. You're doing a good job. And I'm trying to, I'm like, open your eyes, open your eyes, open your eyes. Look at it again. Look at it again. Now, don't look at 150 pounds. because that's not even reflective of your fear. Your fear says you're going to be a lot bigger than that. And not only should that should make sense to you too. Like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to have these issues. I'm going to be sensitive because my fear truly is that if I don't control this, if my body is given the freedom from my controls, it's going to be humongous.
Yeah.
Let me say it again.
Yeah.
Because that fear is there, you're still holding on to these controls around food to some degree, right? Because you believe without even the minimal of controls, your body will balloon up with that.
Yeah. I would say yes on that, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say it again.
I feel like I have to at least maintain some.
Correct. I'm going to say it like 2 or 3 more times, and I want it to sink in. You will continue to monitor your size, to body check, to time your eating, to be aware of good and bad food that will always be there, because underneath it all, you are deathly afraid that without those little things that you continue to do, your body will balloon up.
Right. I agree.
I'm going to say it again. There's a reason why I'm doing this.
Okay.
Because I want you to open your mind's eye and breathe it in. Because the answer is very simple and it's right in front of your face. You will continue to do the little things you do, which are a form of suffering. Because you have to focus. You have to care. You still have to care because you have this belief. You truly believe it. Your body, every cell in your body believes that if you stop this anorexic behavior, your body will balloon with body fat out of control.
Yeah.
So, unless you are willing to let the body balloon out of control, you will continue to suffer on some level. So, the solution or the recovery is an acceptance of that so that you can find out the truth. Because you're not willing to find out the truth because your brain is saying, don't open yourself up to it because it's going to balloon out of control. You're going to be super fat, right? So don't open yourself up to letting these things go. If you were willing to accept that worst case scenario, wouldn't you agree that's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
If you're willing to accept the worst case scenario, don't you agree that allows you to be more open-minded about what the truth is? You can allow the truth to manifest if you've accepted the worst case scenario beforehand.
I agree with you. It's just that.
Don't try to escape what I just said. Just sit with what I just said. If you are willing to accept what your worst fear is from the beginning. Well, my fear says I'm going to be 400 pounds. Okay. Well, if you can accept that, just go into your mind and go, you know what? That would actually be better. What that allows you to do is let go of your controls to find out the truth. Because right now, as it sits, everything you're doing won't go away unless you accept why you still do them, which is the fear of the bigger body beyond 150 pounds. Do you see that clearly?
I'm feeling frustrated, I guess.
Don't judge. Don't judge. But I'm trying to, what I would like you to do is just, are you understanding what I'm saying? I want to know if this is making sense to you.
It totally makes sense.
Great. Just stick with it. Just stick with what I'm saying. Because this should have you should be having a light bulb moment right now. Like, ding, 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 ding. I will never recover until I accept my worst case scenario fears. Because until then, I'm not going to be open to the truth of my body. Because my mind is saying the truth is 600 pounds. What if you completely accept a body that's 300 pounds? But the reality is that you don't gain hardly any weight. Well, the only way you would know that is if you let go of all of your controls. Like, what's the truth of your body without any of those controls? If we eliminate every little thing you do in fear of that 500-pound body, right? I'm just using that as like the fear number, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if you let go of every little detail, every monitor, every awareness, every body check, every control around food, telling you when you can eat, how much you can eat, what you can eat, what time, how much, when and again? If we remove every single effort you put into that, what would happen to your body? What does your fear say? It'll be so fat because you're so flawed.
Yeah, it'll just get bigger and bigger, like we said, yeah.
Okay, so if you can't accept that, can you get rid of
I feel like I've done that, though, because I've accepted it. Like,
have you? Then why is the fear still there of that?
There's just a little
Then
bit.
why are you still doing all these things? So when you say, I thought I did it, well, have you? If you're still holding, if you're still managing, if you're still doing these things to not allow that to happen, have you really accepted it?
No. But sometimes I don't know whether I'm doing them because it's what I truly want to do or because I haven't accepted it. You know what I mean?
I do. And the answer's right there. You just have to look at the truth. What is the truth? What you said to me earlier around, if I stop doing this, I really feel like my metabolism is so flawed that I will gain so much fat it will never stop. So that was the truth you said to me.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Okay, let that sink in. That's the truth. You really feel that inside, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so have you really accepted the weight gain? If that is the truth, if that is your fear.
No, I guess not.
Right? We're stair-stepping it. I think that's important. You're stair-stepping it. Like, you have to some degree. But you're at that point where it's like, if I let go of any more of these restrictions.
You're just so conditioned in me. Like, I might.
No, that was your disease model language coming out.
Yeah.
It's really not that complicated. I have a feeling that right now, you do not want to face the truth. And therefore, you're just kind of halting everything, like a big hard stop. Like, this is where my recovery stops. Because I'm not going to do it. Is there any of that dialogue internally going on? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it like that. Nope, not going to do it. Not an option.
What, gain any more weight?
Yeah. Or do what I'm suggesting. Look at it. Look at it. You're in your mind. You're like, nope, 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 nope. Not going to do it. Because everything I'm saying.
It doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen.
Right? Nope. Not going to do it. Nope. Not going to do it. You can see that, right? But everything I'm telling you is, it's really not complicated. When you go back and listen to this, you're going to hear how simple this is. But part of your mind that was like, nope, not going to do it, is trying to stay in a state of total denial. Nope. No, I have accepted it. Yo, I don't understand. I've accepted it, Robin. Like, eyes shut, ears shut. I thought I already did this. I swear I did. Right? Again, I could be totally interpreting it wrong, but that's what I'm hearing. And as the person you hired to coach you to this point right here, what would happen to your lifetime of anorexia, the moment you do what I'm suggesting you do right now, what would happen to 40 plus years of conditioning?
It'd be gone.
It would disappear in 2 seconds. It'd be gone. Would you rather continue to do what you're doing, avoiding the truth, or would you rather just find out the truth so that you could get your freedom? Because once you know the truth of what your body does, is there going to be a need for those control mechanisms that we call the disorder? Is there a need for the eating disorder?
Not when you just let your body be.
If you allowed the truth to just allow it to manifest. But the only way that would happen is if you stop what you're doing. That's avoiding that, that truth. That's like, I can't face that truth. I believe, internally you still have that feeling. I have the same feeling. Every single person I've worked with has that feeling. If they didn't have that feeling, would they have this disorder? Would they have these eating disorder behaviors? No, they wouldn't. I truly felt that I had to exercise after every meal to make sure I didn't gain weight. And if I stopped exercising, my body, my brain, my whole entire being thought I was going to be morbidly obese. And I exercised to balance it out so it wouldn't. So my flawed ass body had required all of this work just to not gain weight. But all of that excess work that we call eating disorder, right, would go away if I would just allow my body to gain what it naturally was supposed to gain. Because then what's the point of the eating disorder? If you're allowing the body to gain what it naturally would gain to whatever the truth of your metabolism, the truth of your genetics, whatever that truth is. You want freedom from all of the disorder. The only way to get that is to accept the truth of what your body is without all that manipulation.
Yeah.
You're following me right now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, because sometimes I feel like I'm speaking in tongues or something, like it's ridiculous. I don't even know if I make sense. So I know I make sense to me, but I just want to make sure that you're following what I'm telling you and where you're at. I know where you're at right now, and I'm like, here's where you're at, and this is what you're going to have to look at. You can, because I think you could stay where you're at right now in this space where you're still monitoring, you're still checking, you're still avoiding foods, you're still timing everything, you're still dysfunctional, right, on some level. You could probably sit here for a while, but how long?
Well,
and what are you going to do the moment you feel like you're getting fatter?
Initiate another control.
Yes. All right. So do you see where it's like, does it make sense for you to stay in denial about where you're at? In order to avoid the inevitable truth of your body. Again, what would happen to anorexia in your life if you were to allow the body to become what it naturally is without having, like if you ate to hunger, ate whatever you wanted, ate from whatever that is, if you allowed yourself the freedom to experience food and experience life, your body would gain weight, right?
Yeah, it has been. Yeah.
It's going to gain weight. So when it gains weight, it at some point will naturally come to a balance point. At some point, it will naturally balance. I know for me, I truly believe that was over 500, 600 pounds. For you, it might be 200 to 300 pounds. I don't know. At some point, though, it does balance out. And that's the look of your body. That's the state of your body. Whatever that is. And let's just say it's 250 pounds. That is the truth of your natural body, removed of your anorexic behavior. Could you accept that so that you could be liberated from ever having to fix it or care about it again?
I want to say I could, but I've not been doing
Tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Just speak your truth. Don't speak what you hope and want. It's like from your heart. So this is where it is. If you don't look at it, you're not going to get a heart answer. There's something inside of you right now that is saying, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Where you're like, I wish I could. It's a concept of doing it. I wish I could do that. But can you see how that answer is from a space of like trying to not look at it, like trying to cover yourself up, trying to close your eyes. You're closing your eyes saying, I just don't want to open my eyes, Robin. It's so scary. Am I wrong?
No, it is. It's still scary.
Okay, I need you to open your eyes and really look at it. Like if that's the truth of your body, removed of all the anorexic details. And that's where it sits naturally. It requires no thought, no work, no anything. You can be roly-poly, Grandma. Roly-poly. Okay? Imagine this body was born 100 years ago or 150 years ago in the late 1850s. What would you have done then? Totally different time, different culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably would have just not have noticed. You're a 250 pounds roly-poly mom with big boobs or whatever, a big ass and a roly-poly body. Would you have given a shit?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. And what would you have done with that lifetime? Imagine the possibilities. Well, what if it's the same body in this lifetime? Here we are. You get the same goddamn body because your karma, right? So, and what if the truth of it is 250 pounds? That's the truth of this body. And if you refuse to accept that, you are going to live in hell to some degree. Because you can't accept this body. You have to make it something it's not. And that's what the eating disorder is, making it something it's not. So when you willfully open your mind to what it really truthfully is, and in your head it's saying you're going to be 300 pounds. Well, what if it is the truth? So you go there first. Well, if the worst thing that happens to me is that my body is naturally a big roly-poly body, if that's the worst case scenario and you accept that, what happens to this eating disorder?
It just doesn't make sense anymore.
There's no point to it. You would be liberated from it forever. So accepting the truth of your body, wherever it lands, is the key to eating disorder recovery. Bulimic recovery, all of it. And you have done an incredible job inching yourself to this point. You've done it. You are here now. We're here. I'm excited on this side of the screen. I'm excited.
Okay.
Can you feel in what I'm saying? Are you getting a real sense of truth, or are you getting the sense of don't do it? I mean, what are you getting? Because it is obvious.
I'm getting the real sense of truth. Like that's the only way. I just have to just let my body be.
Yeah, this is the exit. This is the exit right here. You haven't done it yet. You've gotten close. But when I have always said, go up way more. I mean, I think you could probably go back to our consult and listen to that where I'm like 300 pounds. The reason I do that, because that is the actual door to the exit. What most people do when they hear me say that is they go, oh my God, no, I'm going to be okay with, I will give myself a lenience of maybe 2 pant sizes. And that's a benefit. Can you see that that's like, great, you did it that much, so you'll get that much of a relief. And that's important because before you were suicidal, you were dying, right? Physically dying. So at least you're here. Woo! To me, that's a big deal. But to expect full recovery without what I'm suggesting is ignorant. You're naive if you think you're going to get full recovery without having to face the vulnerable truth of your body. Not allowing it. You're just not even allowing it to happen, right? If you're not going to allow the vulnerable truth of your body, it would be naive to expect recovery, full recovery.
Well, I've told myself that I'm going to tell the truth. If I'm hungry, I need to eat. Right? And are you there?
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Okay. And I've been doing that. I guess I just always questioned, is what I'm doing normal, or is it disordered, or
Well, it's obvious to me that it's on some level untruthful because you still hold the fear and you believe you're going to gain a shit ton of weight, but you don't want that to happen. So you're not wanting it to happen is going to manifest in how you eat to hunger. You might still be removing certain types of food. You're clearly listening to a podcast that's saying you should, you know what I'm saying? Intermittent fast. You're still implementing your anorexic behavior on some degree.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I just need to think about this.
Yeah, you need to be radically truthful with, I'm not willing to face that. That right there is the part I can't do it. Right? I mean, you can, but you would have to have such a willful desire to recover and to surrender to that truth, to tell the truth so that you could finally get mercy. Because you're still suffering to some degree, right? That willful surrendering of it so that you can finally break free from the chains of it, to escape it, like, and never return. You know, with a threat that is arising is, again, remember when I said there's going to be these threats? You said, I believe my metabolism is so broken that I will gain fat permanently. That's a threat coming from the thin supremacy.
All right.
Instructions would be, I would rather that. Bye, anorexia, and that's the end.
Okay.
And it truly is this abrupt ledge. It's an incredibly abrupt ledge once you say, ultimately, if the only way to end this contract with the devil for me to permanently get out of Dante's Inferno, that I have to be 300 pounds, really think that through. What would your life be like if you were 300 pounds for the rest of this life?
Better than being an anorexia.
You'd have to buy new clothes. You'd have to go through, like, that's what it is. Okay. Remember when I said I would accept my legs getting cut off?
Yeah.
That would be better. To be in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Would you, if I were to say you're going to get your legs cut off, you're going to be wheelchair bound for the rest of your life, would you do that if it meant being permanently relieved from caring about your size, weight, and food?
I think I would.
Okay. So what's wrong with 300 pounds?
Yeah, nothing.
I mean, you still have your mobility. Which one would you rather? Wheelchair without legs at some weight, because you're going to gain weight anyways, right? Or you have your mobility and you Your body becomes 300 pounds. That's what it naturally is. That's what it's going to be at like a neutral point where you're not doing anything. That's what it is. Right? Do you see how really look at what you're willing to accept? What are you willing to accept in exchange for being liberated forever from this lesson? Okay. It's like serving your karma completely. You get a certificate of completion and you graduated from this. You'll never have to come back. You graduated. What if this is the last final exam?
Then it's worth it.
Is Bethany willing to gain 300 pounds? We will have to see. Because once you do that, once you sign that contract that says, oh my God, if all I have is to be heavy, that's the worst case scenario of you eating neutrally, right? Only you know what things you're still doing, by the way. Only you know the things you are still doing that are anorexic.
Yeah.
You would have to remove those willfully. And I know you know what that word means now.
Yeah, I do.
It would have to be, I want to know the truth. I want to know. If it's 300 pounds, I need to know, because that means I have an underlying metabolic problem that I might need to see a doctor about. But if you keep on preventing it through this anorexic behavior, you'll never know.
Yeah.
And you'll never get freedom. Okay, is it more clear to you now?
Yeah.
Are you doing okay? You doing okay?
I just need some time to process the things.
Okay, well, we just processed for 90 minutes.
Yeah.